Well, hello there and good afternoon. My gosh, we have such wonderful, almost spring weather. The construction has started around us in the neighboring studios as they get ready for some new shows next door. Hopefully not too much hammer drilling or anything will come through the mic, but if you hear a little bit in the background, that is exactly what you're hearing. Wish we could control that. Well, welcome. Let me just share my screen here. That will be a good thing for you to see. Hang on one second. We're going to have that right up in front of you. And there we go. I can come a little bit larger. Well, welcome. Today, we're going to have a very interesting lecture. But before we get into today's, let's tell you what's coming up in the next 2 weeks. So on Tuesday, that is Tuesday, March 16th. That's a 5 p.m. lecture. We're going to have the interviewing, and that's also going to cover video interviewing techniques. This is a remote world that we're in. We need to make sure that we're ready for that. Then on Thursday next week, that's Thursday the 18th at 12 noon. Typically, Tuesdays are at 5 p.m. Thursdays are at 12 noon. Thursday, 12 noon, we'll be charting your career transition. If you're looking to take what you have done and really maybe do something different than you've done, but we're still kind of figuring out, well, what are the steps? How do I make those transitions from who I am now to who I'd like to be tomorrow? Great lecture next Thursday. A week from Tuesday, that's Tuesday, March 23rd. That's a 5 p.m. lecture. That is marketing yourself to the decision maker. You can have no greater effect, no greater influence than speaking directly into the decision maker's ears, really persuading them about why you are the very best next hire, very best business decision they're ever going to make if they choose to hire you. That is 2 weeks from Tuesday. That is the 23rd at 5 p.m. Then on Thursday, the 25th, I'll be back with my resume renovation lecture, all the secrets to make your resume really sing and come to life and really start working for you. Let me just get a little bit of a coffee here. Sorry about that. Today is supercharging your job search. Now, the tragedy, in my view, is such a great number of job seekers seem to believe that job search is sitting on the internet looking at job postings. Oh, I'll just sit on the internet looking at postings all day. I'm like, that's not a good choice. About half of all job postings you see are not real in the first place. And usually when I say that to a in-person audience, people are like, whoa, what? What do you mean they're not real? I see them. Well, they exist. That's for sure. You're looking at those postings. But in my view, they don't actually represent a job that's ready to go. They're ready to hire, ready to extend that offer. You know, for it to be real, in my view, they have to be ready to place an ad and begin to do the search for qualified individuals. Once they've identified qualified individuals, they have to be ready to set interview times and dates. Once they have located through the interview process really the right candidates or candidate, depending on how many positions are open, they need to be willing to extend an offer and set a start date. And by that definition of all those things involved, all job postings aren't real. And that comes out of how those job postings are sold. It's simply advertising. Those advertising spots are sold up to 1 year in advance. You know, I used to be VP over 100 office recruiting system. I did all the national contracts. And the only way you ever get a good deal is, well, let me see how many job postings I could use for the entire year. I go to my sales rep. We do a little horse trading. We sign that contract. Those are use them or lose them in 12 months. No idea 6 months or up to a year ago what they're hiring today. And, you know, before long, it starts going, oh, post this, post that, post almost anything we may hire someday has little relevance on today. I think you need to change your whole job search structure. You have to really get away from the concept of wasting 50% of all of your available resource. That's your time, the only resource you really have. You're wasting 50% of it if all you do is sit on the internet looking for job postings. And that's not going to leave us in a very happy place. That's going to leave us in the woulda, coulda, shoulda, how come it all goes to somebody else and it doesn't come my way? Because you didn't have a plan. But no worries, we are going to take care of you. We're going to teach you a plan. Now, as much as I'm going to give that to you and give you advice and really give you even a lot of direction, don't let somebody else think for yourself. Yeah, a lot of direction, a lot of advice, a lot of specifics, and I'm very passionate. But you know what? You have to absorb all information given to you. You have to parse it and value it and decide what aligns with the same things that are right for you and for your next step. And then you have to implement those things, or you're going to end up in the same place you are now, which is really nowhere. We have to sit and think about how we put down that mobile device or whatever it is we're holding or capturing our attention. We have to get out of the back seat and we have to get behind the wheel, or we're never really going to get to that destination that we're thinking about. So as much as I'm going to give you a lot of advice and a lot of things to think about, think for yourself along the way as well. Now, most job seekers end up in a very unhappy place because of everything you see here. I mean, job search and the possibility of my next opportunity. If I'm looking for a new opportunity, possibility of my next opportunity could come from seeing a job posting or hearing about a job posting, or maybe hearing about a need. That's even before job posting, uncovering a need through our network, or maybe all these leads that we could have gotten through our past or present colleagues or HR folks, or maybe even hiring managers that we've come in contact with, receptionists we've come in contact with. Oh my goodness, so many leads, so many things to think about. Company could call us, but really probably not so often these days. A recruiter might call us, but really if the recruiter calls you, more than likely they're trying to pick your pockets for information. Where have you sent your resume? Where have you interviewed? And yes, they'll have a competitor in there probably this afternoon. That's a little sharper than you are once they understand who you are. It's the way recruiting works, unfortunately. There's a lot of different things on this list, and most of us, we start down a little bit of this work and we go, oh, it's too much. And we end up sitting on the internet looking at job postings. You have to distill all those individual activities into a couple core functions, a couple core conduits of activity. Searching for jobs, I have to send out resumes, or there's never going to be a response in the first place. I've got to network with people to uncover things that I don't already know. I have to follow up on different opportunities because, if it's worth pursuing in the first place, it must be worth following up on. So I have to think about that. Of course, I have to strategize for interviews because every single interview, yes, you'd like to win that interview, by the way, but win it or lose it, every single interview is a chance for you to sharpen your presentation skills. How is it that you're going to up the level of your brand? And that's all in the small nuance of how you change, how you present yourself. Of course, we have to market ourselves right to decision makers. By the way, if anybody listening today would like to work for HR, I think you know where your decision maker is. It's in HR. For everyone else that's listening, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your decision maker is not in HR. The subtitle of my book is Changing the Rules. I love every single rule that works for me. I love that. I love that rule. Love that rule. Oh, that rule, that doesn't work for me. That must apply to somebody else, and disregard that one and keep moving. Change the equation of diminishing returns simply by changing some of the rules. That's what you're going to have to do in job search. And getting to the decision maker is a game changer. I don't care that posting itself may say, must send Word document. Of course, I'd never send a Word document. I'd never let a Word document out of my cold, dead fingers. Be sure to watch my resume renovation lecture to really understand that. So I'm never going to do that part of it that they said I must do. Must send compensation requirements. Do you know what that question is? How little can I pay you? Do you think I'm going to answer that question either? No matter how nicely they phrase it? No, I'm not answering that either. If you'd like to know how to get around that one or react to that one if you get trapped, come watch my interview intervention lecture, and that one will be an eye-opener. We cover the whole topic for you. So I want you to think about all these things that you have to take on, all these challenges, and you're going to have to control all of this, or it's going to spiral out of control. Now, I want you to get used to the concept of almost being in the middle, of a little bit of a hurricane, or maybe it's a little bit of a tornado, a little concentrated, little mini hurricane that's right on spot, spinning everything around you. So much activity, so many interviews, so many messages, so much outreach. You're going to forget to do something very, very important. I hope that you learn to like that feeling, by the way, because once you reach that level of activity, you're at the right level where you're going to end up getting multiple offers. That's how you get multiple offers. Up on screen right now is your guiding principle, because you're going to feel pulled in left, right, center, down, up, but all over the map in your job search. And every time it spirals out of control, is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? quick story where I use this myself. Number of years back, I had my book out and everything else. I was still trying to get some notice in the press. Didn't have any quotes up on any of the sites. No one had quoted me as a voice in job search. I'm like, gosh, how can I be perceived as the expert if my voice isn't out there in some quote? The modern world. And so just like in job search, the problem isn't really that difficult. You just have to think out of the box. I mean, it's not really possible to reach these people, is it? But if it was, how could I do it? Working backward, I simply went to Google, clicked the news tab, started to put in resume, job search, interviewing, challenges, all the different terms that would be right for my background. And you know what I found is all these articles all across the country that are all about the topics that I speak on, things that I could add value to, and they're all attached to a journalist that writes about my subject matter. Now I have a list of 50 individuals that I could send out a press release one at a time introducing myself to. The new voice in job search. Here's a sample. Here's the reason why. Here's why you should consider me for your very next article. And if you'd like to discuss or talk, here's how to reach me. I'm sitting on my home office couch at that point years ago, sending these things out one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. I mean, I can't send them out to 50 people all CC'd. It's like, I guess somebody else will write about this guy. No, one at a time, dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill. And in the middle of that, I'm like, is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? And I won the argument. Oh, there's no doubt I did not like what I was doing. Absolutely, I did not like it. It was very distasteful to me to be involved in that kind of self-promotion, which I've gotten past because I understand it's necessary. Okay, you may have to get past some things that are necessary to reach your goals. But I decided at the end of that conversation, I decided to invest that 2 hours of time when I wasn't feeling emotionally stressed, or I wasn't feeling pressured. I decided it was a good investment. Finish it. Just do it, which I did. And 2 hours later, got a call from the Wall Street Journal. That's a very good call to get. You know, you get the Wall Street Journal first, all the rest come very quickly. So use this as a barometer for yourself. Make sure you are doing the activity that will get you to the right reaction first, not necessarily the thing you enjoy doing most first. Now, structuring and building our job search plan of action is going to involve a few basic job search steps. As I've told you that I'm not a big fan of sitting on the internet looking at job postings, let me describe what I feel job search is. I feel job search is starting with the right collection of target organizations or companies. Which ones do you want to work for? By the way, the right number there is 30. 30 organizations you're dying to work for. So I choose those companies or organizations. I stack rank them in whatever order is most valuable to me, because that's all that really matters. I don't want to invest my time approaching companies that are least valuable to me first. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And so from that, I'm going to choose 25 to 30 individuals. I walk through all of this quite extensively in my LinkedIn lecture. So if we don't cover enough of this today, if you'd like a little more in-depth, watch the LinkedIn lecture right over on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to select 25 to 30 individuals, up from where I imagine myself, down, all the way down to admin level, very strategic reasoning, left and right, into a couple surrounding departments. Really what I have now is a nice healthy mix of, if it was a non-pandemic world, these are probably the 25 to 30 people I'm most likely to see every day of my work life, most likely to interact with. By selecting them on LinkedIn and opening their profiles and asking them to connect, I've triggered a marketing mechanism where I'm looking at them with my nice headline, my nice background. It's like, oh my gosh, this guy looks like he should work here. Yes, I should. You begin to warm up the audience behind the firewall of the company simply by the beginning of opening and asking to connect, not even waiting for an answer, because it's a sales process. There's no point in waiting for an answer. It's a sales process. You just go through the steps. Open, ask to connect, don't wait. And now I simply look back at those 25 to 30 people that I chose. And from our own brain, we decide, well, who do I think, because it's the only opinion that actually matters, who do I think are the 3, 4, or 5 individuals that would likely be involved in the discussion to hire a person like myself? And then, in addition to the fact that I've already opened their profiles, I've already asked them to connect, and I didn't wait for the answer. Now I simply email them. Please hear that correctly. I email them at their email, not an in-mail. That's in-mail, for clarification, is spam. We talk a lot about that in the LinkedIn lecture. Go listen to that one. I send them a direct email, not brain surgery to get anybody's email these days. That's 99% of the people within 2 or 3 minutes. Let that 1% go that you cannot get. Get the 99% of the people and move on. Now I pick those decision makers. I email them directly with a wonderful, engaging message just to them because it's a date. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, by first name. I have to be equal to every single person that I speak with. If I cannot address you by first name, we are certainly not equal. I've already positioned myself as subservient. So dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, and it's a date. I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what I see going on at XYZ company. Pause. And then you cannot blow smoke. So I have to tell them. They're like, oh, really? Do tell. What is it? Is it my eyes, my lovely flowing hair? Yeah, you're going to have to tell them. So let's pick it back up. I'm so excited by what I see going on at ABC company. By the way, I saw that Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. Oh, those things are always so good to get. Yes, be a real human being, just as if you were talking to a dear old friend you hadn't seen in 5 years. Warm and welcoming. And here's where you have to use a sales technique that we're not supposed to use in life. And that is we are supposed to assume the relationship. Even though I've never spoken to this person before that I'm reaching out to, I have to assume that we have a warm relationship. I have to assume that they're going to love to speak with me once they get past the initial little bit, because they'll realize how I can help them, how I can be valuable to their team, how I can change the equation for them because it's a date. And now I dazzle them. I book a meeting and either get that job or they create a job for me. And if you'd like multiple choice, if you'd like choice at all really in your career, this is about getting this to be a little bit of a mechanism so I can repeat, really going after multiple companies all simultaneously, just as if I were speed dating a number of people to find Mr. or Mrs. Right, whoever it might be. So wherever you are in that process, take your first step and learn how to get that engine running. Now, we're going to go into a lot more detail ahead, but if you've not seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru. So if your resume is not singing your praises, if it's not lifting your brand, if your LinkedIn profile is not a three-dimensional sales brochure all about you that naturally drives the reader to a singular conclusion, my gosh, if I hire that person, best business decision I'll make today. If yours is not that, well, I think you know who you should work with, and packages are right over my Self-Recruiter website. Just look right there under the drop-down menu. You can see whatever is right for you. If you have a question before you select your package, let's set up a time to have a little chat. Now, as we move forward here, some good ideas in my book will, there's enough resources out there about that. We'll skip over this part of it. Over on the LinkedIn side, there's a few more things. Now, the whole LinkedIn lecture, you can see right on my website, selfrecruiter.com, about halfway down the page. You can see me, you can see the slides, you can make me large or the slides large, really whatever way you'd like to view it, whatever's right for you, and really use it as a start and stop tutorial as you rebuild your LinkedIn profile, or really redevelop your LinkedIn profile into a better selling brochure. On LinkedIn itself, on my profile, you can click my articles to get to how to supercharge your job search. That'll really support what I'm teaching you today, or how to avoid the biggest mistake in job search. That's really a time mismanagement piece, or how to really not let that resume become resume roadkill, which really doesn't help us too much. So across this lecture, and really all of the lectures, it's about how you come or develop yourself into a self-recruiter. How am I going to be this one great recruiter that represents one great candidate, which is you? That means I'm going to have to network in a very different way. That's really the LinkedIn lecture, so make sure you watch that. And also it means no matter what, I've got to keep one eye on the toughest competitor imaginable. Those 4, 5, or 6 people that want that job. The best of the best, you can't beat those folks unless you're willing to think about them. Job search is a sales process. And whether you like to sell or not, and most people don't, other people that want that job more than you will sell their assets off. They will sell every aspect of their background, trying to really push you out of the decision process so that they get selected. It's not as easy as really, I'll just go after the job, I'll just get the job. Yeah, if it worked that way. But everyone's sitting home hitting that darn button, and almost never does it really say apply. It's almost always submit, all capital letters, until we're so submissive. It's like a Friday night waiting for that darn phone to ring, which leaves us really back in that very unhappy place. We're not going to spend too much time in the unhappy place. Think in your career for a moment. Think about the thing that you're most proud of, the most impressive project that you were involved in. Boy, did that involve a lot of problem solving, a lot of brain power, a lot of stress, a lot of focus. Your job search is the most important project you've ever worked on. It requires tremendous problem solving. It requires an intuitive nature in your questioning, thinking no matter how I get blocked or how there seems to be a roadblock, oh, there's another way, because it's simply a sales process. By the way, that should help you make it a less stressful event, because if you realize it's simply a sales process, you could devise the sales steps and simply allow yourself to follow the recipe, which is far less stressful. Now, take a look at this pyramid here. It's a kind of a reverse little pyramid funnel here. This is a traditional sales funnel. If you've ever been in sales, anywhere in sales, you've certainly seen one of these before. In terms of our job search, you realize it requires a lot more activity at the top and quite a bit of activity at the next level and a little less activity at the next level to all distill down to some meaningful outcome. In the job search process, it's about building awareness and somehow from that creating an interest, and from that a consideration of our value, and from that step an offer for us to potentially join. Now, if we'd like multiple offers and really choice in our career, let me give you some goals. Your goal, which is very tough, may sound simple, is to generate one brand new interview per week. By the way, that's not a second interview at a company or a third interview at a company. Oh, those are wonderful and typically required before you get that offer. This is one brand new initial interview, starting off the whole process every single week. That is a very tough thing to do. It requires getting that engine of activity moving, and that requires what you see on screen here, going after 10 of your 30 organizations simultaneously. As you have gone through everything you can do with one of the companies on that list, they fall off, and some other company from the remainder of your 30 list comes on. So you're actively always pursuing 10 organizations at once. That's a lot of juggling. Remember, being inside of that tornado, then you'll have the activity. So it's 30 companies or organizations. It's a lot better if you start with ones that are statistically perfect to hire you. In fact, the only unknown is, do they have an opening? But they would hire you tomorrow if they had an opening. I teach exactly two methods of how to do that in the LinkedIn lecture. So I'm not going to cover that part again. But once we have this list of the right companies, then we need to warm up the audience. So to drill down on what I told you earlier, a little bit more detail, I'm going to select the 25 to 30 individuals. That increases my odds. If we're only brave enough to go after 2 or 3 people or those kinds of things, boy, we're never really going to get what we might like. So yes, I'm going to go up the food chain. Don't be shy. Up, top-down selling. Impress those people at the top of the food chain. Makes life easier getting whatever spot on the food chain you'd like. Down, all the way down to admin level for very strategic reasoning. They might connect with you very quickly because you're up the food chain from them. And they'll go, oh, this person wants to connect with me? I'd love to. And then you own the entire network 2 levels behind them. A lot of great reasoning. Of course, left and right into other departments, because I have to influence everybody that could be part of this process. So I'm going to open their profiles. I'm going to ask them to connect. That's that marketing thing. Basic message that says, you don't know me. I'm professionally appropriate. No, here's a little stroke to your ego. I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending how we like to say that comment. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. That's a message, by the way, you write one time ever and copy and paste forevermore. Very, very simple. And of course, as I said before, it covers all these basics, which then gets the nonsense out of the way, out of people's minds. Now, without waiting from there, I'm going to select the 3, 4, 5 individuals out of that whole group. Who do I think is going to be involved in the discussion for a person like me? Who's that person? Now, if you think about what I'm describing, you're going to be uncovering a lot of information. Information about companies, information about people, information about their structure, information about what activities you have had, what conversations you may have had with those people. That's a lot of equity you are building in your career, not just for this round of your job search, but even the next time, the next time, the next time. So, by the way, these you can download right from my website for free. Just go under the advice tab, which is my blog, and look for the job search management system. Just click on it. You can download the whole thing for free. It's a structure of how you begin to build out, say, a company development card or a company development spreadsheet. So you begin to understand who these people are. And by the way, yes, absolutely, they're going to move around company to company, and you'll have their whole history, and you'll be able to make a deeper connection, much easier to sell to them in the future when you'd like to make a job search move into a new place. So just to recap this piece of it, I'm not going to go over everything that's on screen again. There it is. That's the basic steps for the process itself. Now let's give you a little bit more depth on how you really energize this, how you put a little gasoline or diesel or whatever, plug in that battery if we're going electric, whatever it might be. So just to recap, I'm going to select the organizations or companies, and if you need more detail, watch the LinkedIn lecture to pull those. Now you have to allow yourself to think backwards, work like the detective. That's not possible, but if it was, how do I align the sun, the moon, the stars, working backwards to figure out the steps? Not very difficult. Discover the decision makers. We're going to show you a little bit of that right here, but if you need more detail, right in the LinkedIn lecture, every single step on how you use LinkedIn to reverse search any company to find anybody that you like. And what is their title, by the way? Decision maker. What does that mean? It's their job to object to you. You know, when someone objects to me, but you don't have this background, you know what? You know what happens inside? Because I understand they would not waste oxygen on the conversation if they didn't think, oh, maybe. Well, I have to ask you this. And then they throw out a little challenge for you. So when they object to you, that's them giving you a soapbox, giving you a platform. They want to see how you put your thoughts together to overcome that. By the way, anytime someone does object, simply use an agree but disagree technique. Find some way, shape, or form to agree with them, no matter what you have to do, even if you don't agree, and then disagree with them by what you say next. So if someone says, oh my gosh, John, but you don't have this background. You know, I don't. Just like it's a gift from up above. Because you know what? I don't have the background. I can't invent it. I can't gloss that part over. I might as well just face it with a smile as if it's meaningless. Nothing. Doesn't even enter into the process. And then I disagree with the whole concept and what I say next. But I'm sure, of course, you're going to meet a lot of folks with that particular background, you know, in the other candidates. Other people are always candidates with a little bit of cat hair in your mouth, almost candidates. You know, what I am is quite a unique individual. I bring something to the table that the others won't. And here's why I'll be the very best one for the role. It's your chance to position and sell yourself. Explain why you are different than the rest, that cookie cutter person that seems perfect, that probably brings a lot of baggage with them. You never can quite tell. And certainly never going to bring the level of passion that you bring, because you are there to sell. Overcome those objections, get a meeting, dazzle them. And they're either going to give you that job or they're going to create a job for you. That's our basic steps. Small little changes, change perception on everything. But that also means we've got to work with a script. Very few of us could be, wow, I'm so great off the cuff. Well, I may be pretty good off the cuff because I've been speaking on this subject for a very long time, and I'm a true expert in my field. But most of us, the moment it's about me, we clam up, the spotlights are on, and we just go into a panic. A lot of people today are in a panic because everything today, or most things today, even at the moment, involve remote work or a certain degree of remote work. And maybe you haven't worked remotely before, or you haven't done it much in much of a way that was very effective. And there's such a panic. I haven't done it. Well, you may have to go back and retell your story in a slightly different way. You may have to think of different ways that you engaged different people in a remote way. Maybe it was a vendor or a manager that was offsite, or team members. Think about all the different potential ways there. And if none of those things, maybe you've been a speaker. Maybe you've had conference calls on a weekly basis with off-site people, teams, internal or external, doesn't really matter. Depends on how you tell that story. Maybe you've been a presenter at a conference, or maybe you do webinars, all different ways to demonstrate remote ability. By the way, you are going to have to become comfortable in this type of environment. So if you have not seen my lecture, How to Be a Presentation Guru, and that's for your business or your career, just hop over to my YouTube channel, Self Recruiter, and check out that lecture, because no matter what, you have to be at the top of your game. Now, if you need a reminder of what that means, the reality is that I am standing about 2-3 inches from the wall behind me. I have a nice green screen to swap things out. I'm surrounded by 3 extremely large lights that are really almost blinding. Hazel eyes, so my eyes are very sensitive. I'm also standing in about 1 square foot of space, and I allow myself to move around, but my feet really don't move, so that I all stay within the frame. And did you forget that this is actually really just a monologue? This isn't really a conversation because I'm by myself. So that takes a lot of creation to convey what you might like about you over video. Be sure to watch the Presentation Guru and also the Interview Intervention lecture coming up. That'll be critical to you winning over the other competitors that are out there. So, tough question. Let's take it on. Who is it that makes these decisions? You know, a decider. There's a decider. Yeah. Well, there is a decider, but you know, that's not really what we're talking about. The decider rarely makes the decision in some vacuum. So yes, the decider, but not just the decider. Who are the influencers? Who are the people that might help that decision feel like a group decision, or where a decision where there's buy-in? And that means, yeah, I have to think about the boss's boss, and everyone in between, the peers, subordinates, anybody that might interact. You just don't know who could be the influencer without having more detail. But think about the structure, think about the people that surround and where the conversation happens. So, you know, when we think about it, unless you would like to work for HR, let's remind you one more time, your decision maker, the decider, is not in HR. But there is one decision being made about you, and that is HR's mission in life is to rule you out. And that's not because they're doing bad things. That's the function. There are 1,000 to 2,000 people sending in their materials if this is a decent job you're going after. And the only way you get through all that background is to pick every single one of those resumes up and go, what's wrong with this one? What's wrong with this one? What's wrong with this one? Boom, boom, boom. Oh no, this one looks pretty good. Good stack. Oh, what's wrong with this one? What's wrong? So, my gosh, if you don't want to work for HR, you're letting people that don't have your background rule you out. That's why you need to watch that lecture coming up in a couple of weeks, reaching out to the decision maker, marketing yourself right to that decision maker. Now, depending on what field we're in, not brain surgery to work backward here. You can take a look at what's on screen. I'm not going to read this for you. Every department is structured in a very similar way. A few of the titles may change here and there. You really know what those specific titles tend to be for the departments you've typically worked for. So begin to think about who are the influencers, who's up the food chain, who's down the food chain, who are the peers and subordinates. And yes, capture that knowledge, begin to fill out those cards, begin to think, who else could I get to that I haven't? You know, some other basic ways besides doing, obviously, the LinkedIn reverse search. It could be name mentions. Are you living and breathing your profession? Are you reading, absorbing everything that's out there? Well, books, articles, blogs, press releases, there's so much information, even company websites that talk about name mentions. Those are decision makers. Those are people that you can go to and stroke their ego very easily, and also engage them about how you can be a wonderful resource. Every single person that you interact with can give you a referral. Decision makers, every one of them. Industry managers, connections, all sorts of people could give you referrals. You know, who's the best director of whatever you've ever worked with? Boom, image pops in their brain. That'd be Jack Smith. What's Jack's phone number? I can't ask that, can I? Did you notice what I did is I just removed permission layer. I didn't say, can you tell me Jack's phone number? Do you have Jack's phone number? I would just call the main number. If I trigger permission layer, they're going to figure out whether they should or probably should not give that information to you. Just learn to ask directly, and what you get is the knee-jerk reaction. Boom, we hit the nerve, and they just regurgitate the information. Technique I learned as a recruiter, by the way. Remove permission and simply ask it. By the way, if they gave me the phone number, My very next sound out of my mouth would be, what's Jack's email? I can't ask that, can I? Absolutely. You'll be shocked, because even though inside you may feel terrible for asking, oh, I feel terrible. The moment one or two of them give you that information and you realize it's like taking candy from a baby. If we can just get out of our own way and ask those questions, which may sound difficult, some of those people just tell us. That'll help you. So those name mentions. Of course, we can go through LinkedIn, our own understanding of how the orgs we typically work for are structured, and we reverse search the company. Let's walk you through that part. That part is pretty easy. So I go to the unified search box at the top of any page on LinkedIn. It's identical on every single page. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to type in the company that I'm after. If tops on my list is Informatica, by the way, that's a big database middleware company. Also, when I was a recruiter, it was one of my cash cows, lots of placements there. So in this example here, I'm typing Informatica. Now, as you begin to type, you're going to get this drop-down menu. Please don't click on the drop-down menu. That is a trip down the rabbit hole. Simply type what you'd like, hit enter, then you're going to get this nice secondary sorting process. Yes, I am looking for the people that work at Informatica, but I'm always multitasking. I'm betting that if I'm looking up Informatica and I'm right to work for Informatica, I bet you there's other organizations that are not on John's radar that I need to also market myself to. So the first place I want to start really is companies. So Informatica companies, hidden behind that little drop down. What do we get? 34,000 companies. That's a lot of companies. Only a few dozen here are really related to Informatica. Who are the rest of them on this list? I can tell you. This used to be my field. Everyone on this list a little bit further down the page, once you get past the Informatica, well, the rest of them are all system integrators. They either install or resell Informatica software. If I am statistically right to work for Informatica, oh my goodness, I am statistically very likely right to work for anyone else on this list. If you didn't connect those dots yet, you could take each employer you've worked for one at a time and pop them in here just like this. And even if you're going, why is this company on the list? All those other companies have an interest in you. It could be your training background. There's some reason they're coming up. Introduce yourself and open some doors. But of course, you have to reach people. So we have to go back in. And by the way, I only use the free version of LinkedIn. So everything I'm teaching you here today, you can do in the free version. I go in, I click on people, and I go, what do we have? Oh, 2.5 million. Whew, cold and in the ground before I get through that list. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. I have to brainstorm. Remember the problem solving? So let me brainstorm. You know, I don't need everybody, and I don't need them all over the world. So give me the ones just in the US. That'll help. And give me the ones not like 3 years ago used to work for Informatica. I need the ones working there today, currently at Informatica. And who do we have? Current company. And in the US, what do we get? 1,615 results. Okay, that's better. I can't look at 1,600 profiles either, especially on the free version. That's not going to work. Okay, I'm have to think a little bit more. I have to think in stages. That's what's good problem solving, brainstorming. Maybe it's a VP. I think it's a VP that's going to hire me. Look at that, just a simple VP search. Really in the US, really currently working for Informatica. What do we get? 75 VPs. Oh, a lot of chiefs. A lot of chiefs at that company. You know, maybe it's a director. Maybe it's a director I think is going to hire me. Really, of course, in the US, really currently working for Informatica. Director. 228 directors. I'm going the wrong direction. Oh, I have it because I'm working through some brainstorming here. That's the way problem solving works. You know, I've discovered what I really am looking for is none of those things. I'm looking for a sales director. And let's get a little more specific. I'm really looking for one right in New York City, right even on the free version, right down to New York City. Sales director, right in New York City. What do I get? 3. Well, I can reach out to 3 people. And I believe I'm really looking for 3 to 5 of those magical people at the top of the food chain that I can go after. Now, 3 is pretty good. 5 is even better. If I approach 5 people consistently, I'm going to have far different results percentage-wise than if I approach 3 people consistently or only 1 person at a time. I want to up my odds as much as possible. Every time I'd like to go after 5 people, I'll settle for as little as 3 if I can't find 5. But maybe I just need a little more thought process. Maybe Maybe there's also a sales VP, maybe not a director, but sales VP really in New York City. Maybe. I don't know. Let's take a look. Look at that. 2 more. Now I have 5 individuals. Fantastic. I'm now at the kind of maximum I'm after to increase my odds. And I'm, by the way, besides, of course, opening their profiles, asking them to connect, of course, because they're all part of the 25 to 30 people I select. But these are the 3 to 5 special people that I'm going to send a direct email to. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill. We're going to go through all of that by first name, by the way, if you didn't pick that up. One other thing to teach you here before we leave this little screen here. Over on the far right, the connect wheel, well, you know what that is. I love to connect with them. Yes, love that. Copy paste that generic message from earlier. I love to connect with other professionals in our niche. And of course, I'd love to add you my professional network on LinkedIn. But then we get this darn send in mail for Nick here. Send in mail. I hope you didn't forget already from what I said earlier. In mail is spam. The literal definition of spam, it is paid email. My inbox on LinkedIn is filled with well over 1,000 unopened messages, just clogged beyond belief with spam. Please do not send in mail. It may not seem like spam to you, but to your targets, they're all high volume folks, high volume decision makers, high volume recruiters, high volume HR folks. It is spam to them. Don't send it. Send it direct to email. Connect with them directly. If I really wanted to connect with Nick, they can't stop me. It's their business model. Load his profile. Click the ... and hidden right behind the little drop down is the connect. I'll put that button over here behind the bush. They'll never find it back there. Of course, there's that message we need to send. Job search is the sales process. So yes, connecting with people is part of that. Connecting that right amount of people to warm up the audience, the opening, the asking to connect, everything that we went through. I don't wait. Now I simply select those 3, 4, 5 individuals like you just saw. I didn't wait for their answers either. And now I'm just going to reach out to them directly after, of course, I've filled in all this information in my sheet so I don't lose the equity in knowledge that I've built, which would be a real shame. And now I have to focus on making it all about them to create engagement. It's a date. So I hope you understand why you're excited about them and you're ready to outreach. I hope your message doesn't sound like this. Hi, it's John. I'd like you to hire me. I'm sorry, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. Security. That's not a very good message. Remember, sales process. It's also a dating process. So value in every single word is how you're going to open up doors, and especially those ones that you don't think have existed for you. Your job is to be persuasive. You have 30 seconds. We're going to go through the whole script, what I recommend. Now, you're going to write the script on your own time, but we're going to take you through the whole form. This whole form is part of the free downloadable job search management system right under the advice tab on selfrecruiter.com. So let's zoom in on this so you can see it. All the text written on the left, when you do write out your own script, that will help remind you of everything I teach you today. So don't worry too much, but let's go on the structure on the right. So I'm going to greet them. Now, when I would teach recruiters this, because really it's the same thing I taught recruiters for many years, how you reach out to the decision maker, I'd go to the greet them part, and somebody in the back of the class, when it was a live class, someone would go, isn't that what they all do? Yes. The usual, customary, expected. Now, I'm a big believer in unusual, unconventional, unexpected, but here is where we're going to use the usual, customary, expected. They've been trained like Pavlov and the dogs. You know, ring that little bell and bring the food out, and the dog salivates, and keep doing it until the dog salivates. And eventually I stop bringing the food out, but keep ringing the bell and the dog salivates. Proper greeting, they're trained to salivate in a certain way, or they're trained to regurgitate in a certain way. Anything to start the discussion process is necessary. So yes, I'm going to greet them. I'm going to wait for the response. No one wants to wait for the response. In fact, they're afraid to stop speaking even for a moment, because that's when they're going to say, no, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. Security. Acknowledge their response, good, bad, or ugly. You cannot pretend you didn't hear it. Acknowledging it does not mean I need their permission to move forward. I'm going to acknowledge it and then keep moving along with my mission in life. I'm going to tell them about my background. If I went to one of those schools, there's only about this many. If I went to one of those schools, I'm going to tell them because the doors will probably fly off the hinges. Short of going to one of those schools, I leave the education out for the moment. Make sure I've included 2 or 3 things that would make them jump out of their chair and then close them for a meeting. Take you through a little bit of language here. Put that off screen here and just I want you to just listen to this part. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. By the way, that's literally what I say. This is whether it's in writing or over the phone. Think about what that communicates if you got that. Oh my gosh, this person could not hold themselves back. It's a date. It's a date. It's your job to generate the interest. By the way, the interest cannot be about you. I know it's about you, but it cannot be about you. It's about them on a date. Did you ever go out on one of those dates with Mr. Me? Me. Is there a second date with Mr. Me? I don't think so, unless we're going to the Four Seasons or someplace that I'm really desiring to go. Maybe there's one more date, but that's about it. It's not going to happen here. It's not happening. So, think about creating the desire for your product. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, by first name. I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what I see going on at XYZ company. In fact, I saw the Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. By the way, I picked that article and that launch because that's something I could add value to. Gives me something to speak about. Also gives me a way to segue to a giant carrot in my very next statement to get a meeting. By the way, a meeting is an interview. You do not need it to be called an interview. Please stop that nonsense. Any meeting is an interview. If you say the word interview, you know what happens? Kick to HR pretty quickly. Oh, I got in trouble last time. I got in trouble. Meeting. Oh, I can meet with anybody. Absolutely. I'd love to meet with you, or I could share more. When I was at XYZ company, I handled a very similar launch. Here's the carrot. I'd love to come in and share with you how we tackled all those issues that I bet your team's experiencing. Notice also how I left a little wiggle room. No one wants to be told what they're experiencing. I know what you're experiencing. You don't know what I'm experiencing. What your team might be experiencing. A little bit of wiggle room. And then right for the jugular. I have an opening on my calendar. My calendar. Your words are very important. Open on my calendar Tuesday at 10 a.m. One day, one time, never more. If you are open all next week, I am never meeting with you. You have nothing going on and you are not valuable. You're going to waste my time. One day, one time for them to react to. And by the way, good, bad, or ugly reaction, they've already decided that you're worth speaking to. They're having a reaction about that time. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Oh, that's terrible. It's terrible. Wednesday, 3 o'clock. Oh, perfect. Really? They went from psycho booker to perfect. You're interrupting the middle of their workday. Don't assign any reaction to their tone, or they may have a fire going on all around them. Now, another thing that you can do up on screen, can I call you back and bother you? Can I call you back and question you? No. But there are many times you may have a conversation or even interview with someone and they select someone else. One thing I would recommend is calling to or creating this idea that you have an agreement to a relationship. So you could call them back in the future. Think about this. If someone had said this to you, Jack, from time to time, I'll run into something, some interesting situation when I'm out there speaking to others in the industry, other managers, because they live in a bubble too. All these managers live in a bubble, and this is how they get access to other insights of what's going on. It'd be helpful to run a scenario by you, by me, stroke to the ego. Would it be okay to give you a call for an opinion or advice? My opinion or advice? Who doesn't want to be taken seriously? If something were to come up in discussions. By the way, I do not expect you to actually call them back this way very often, but just going through this motion of asking for an agreement to a relationship, it makes a much tighter bond, and boy, will they remember you. So think about what you see up here and what the subtext is and what really hits home if you say it the right way. And I've never had someone, when you do this correctly, never had someone that doesn't want it, doesn't say, no, I want to be kept in the loop. because there's no indication I'm going to call you and bother you. And that's certainly not part of the process. Don't burn out your assets. You have to keep them ready just in case I ever want to use them. So manage and balance all of that outreach. I have to build trust and rapport and relationship. And every single thing that I say has to somehow sow those seeds of value. Another thing that you can do as you're networking and talking with all these people, by the way, every single person that you speak with, yes, you have a primary goal of whatever that is you're after. Maybe it's a certain job or whatever it might be. But you're either going to get that goal or not get that goal as you go after it. When you don't get that goal, you also have to go after other things. Maybe if I realize I'm not going to get that goal, but we've had a great discussion, Jack sees my value, I can put Jack in my shoes, make him look out of my eyes and get his opinion. Like, Jack, with your background and, of course, position within the industry, stroke that ego, you must hear things. Who do you know that's hiring right now? Or Jack, with your background and, of course, position within the industry, what am I missing? If you had my background, where would you look? I'd look at ABC Company. Why didn't they say that before? It's not their job to think of things or places to tell me to consider. It's my job or your job to have things in conversation that will cause their brain to think of things to tell you to consider, or to have you think and look for different opportunities in places that you haven't thought of before. So every single one of these discussions is a deeper networking discussion, even though you're going after a goal. So yes, what else can I get from this call? What else can I say? What do I want to leave them thinking, or what are they thinking of me? I have to balance all of this. What do they think of my skills? Is there something else on this call or discussion that I could do? I apply all of that to this process of repeat. It's all mixed in when I get them on the phone or I get them in an email. And that's how you begin to take control, by gentle, figurative nudges through the entire process. Back to the planning your day. I'll give you just a little bit of insight into the system you can download for free. If you don't plan your day, you're not likely to get to where you need to be. You have to have something to structure these core items that we're after, to control these core functions of your job search day. You utilize that guiding message to make sure you stay on track. All these forms, as I said, you can download. We're going to take you through just a couple of them because I want you to see these pieces. The rest you can look at in detail. The first sheet of the form is where you set your goals. So the bottom of the form is where you set your weekly goals. I can give you some ideas of what numbers might make sense here. This is number of companies I'm going to contact each week. These are brand new companies you have never contacted before. This is not the 4 companies you need to follow up with. Absolutely follow up with them. You also have to have new blood in your job search every single day. There's got to be new energy. So number of new contacts, new companies I'll contact each week, 3. I know that may sound like a very low number. 3 last week, 3 next week, 3 the week after, and they all take multiple overlaying follow-up. You'll be 2 or 3 weeks into this before it will be spiraling out of control with 3 brand new companies each week. Number of emails, those are outbound, by the way. Inbound emails are the fruits of your labor coming back to you. Outbound emails, this is not to jobs at. These are direct emails to direct decision makers. How many of those outbound each week? Not really sure what the right number is there, but you're going to have a significant number of outbound. Number of calls outbound. Your calls may be 0. You might go, I'm not ready, John. Okay. But when you are, give it a try. And if you need some extra courage, you know what? You could call after hours where you're almost 100% sure it's going to go into voicemail. And you can begin that way to practice until you're comfortable. Put it into voicemail until you're ready to take a potential live. Remember, when you call during the day, though, better than 90% of the time it's going into voicemail. So most of the time is practice about going into voicemail where they can hear your passion. Sounds almost the exact same way as I wrote it. Hey, good morning, Jack. I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. Oh, by the way, I sent you an email. I'm guessing you hadn't seen that yet. I'm so excited by what I see going on at XYZ company. I'd seen the Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. Congratulations. By the way, those are always so good to get. Jack, when I was back at ABC company, Oh, I handled a very similar launch. I'd love to come in and share with you how we tackled all those issues I bet your team's dealing with. Now, I'm not sure your schedule. I have an opening at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, if that might work for a brief discussion. But I'm certainly looking for a very, very valuable conversation. Here's my cell. Boom. It's virtually identical to what I wrote, but it's very, very different in tone. They cannot hear your passion in writing. They can hear your passion in a voicemail. Just don't go into voicemail mode, which is beep. Oh, hi, Jack. What is your voice doing way up there? Stay relaxed, just as if they're waiting on every single word that's dripping out of your mouth. They're probably going to interrupt you, but they can't because it's actually a voicemail. Take your time. Be engaging. Create atmosphere. Very, very important. Number of calls outbound. You got to have a lot of calls to make it happen. Number of calls to managers versus HR. I hope you differentiate those, because the calls to HR, unless you're trying to get hired directly in HR, are not very good calls for you to make. And out of all that activity, number of meaningful conversations. Now, there's where you could really kid yourself. Probably about 6 meaningful conversations per week. That's a meaningful conversation, by the way, is something where I got something. They weren't hiring. They had no interest in me for today, but I got a referral. I got another idea of another company. I got something meaningful. Your job is to walk away from every interaction with something meaningful. That's how you begin to supercharge your job search. Now, over the course of 8 weeks, every single Friday, you have an epiphany moment. In my book, I talk about, if you'd like to be successful, you only have to be honest with one person, and that's yourself. And I verbally illustrate that by talking about the concept of us being completely naked in front of a full-length mirror with only fluorescent lighting. None of us really look like those folks in the magazine. And you know what? Neither do they, thanks to Photoshop. But that fluorescent light of honesty will help you. So if you got a 0, if you got a goose egg, this is not the time to fudge the numbers. Every single Friday, you have that epiphany moment and you write down exactly what you accomplished. I got a 0. Oh, I got a 1. And then the next week and the next week. And over the course of 8 weeks, you'll have a marked difference in your outcome simply by following up. Now, no other detail here, but let's just go over what we have here. A forum for job search opportunities and tracking those. Networking strategy, because your strategy has to develop. It's not simply about tracking it. You have to think about this. The resumes you send out, you know what? Can you name every place you sent a resume in the last 30 days? A surprising number of people cannot do that. It's like it was worth all of that time, but not worth following up on. And by the way, following up doesn't sound like, hey, I sent my resume in. You're calling to see if I'm doing my work. No, what was the name? Oh, yeah, here it is. I have a file for you, vertical file. So don't call to see if people are doing their work. That is not a date. That is not delivering value. Resumes I've sent out. We talked about that. Interview strategy has to develop each and every time you have a conversation. Of course, calling strategy is very, very much the same way. You know the answer here. What's your next step? What's your first step? Let's learn how to repeat this thing over and over and over. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today. Let's just tell you again what's coming up. This coming Tuesday, that's March 16th, that is a 5 p.m. lecture. That is a great lecture to get you ready for your next interview. Everything about the interview preparation, how to sell yourself, negotiation, everything else, plus video interview techniques that have to work for today. We're in a different paradigm, different world. Charting your career transition, that is next Thursday, the 18th. That is a 12 p.m. lecture. If you're looking to go do something different than you've done before, that is a great lecture for that. Coming up Tuesday, March 23rd, that's a 5 p.m. lecture. That is marketing yourself directly to the decision maker. Take control of your job search and have some amazing discussions that will open up really a whole new pathway for you. And we're following that on Thursday, the 25th. That is a 12 noon lecture with resume renovation, all the different things that have to happen to your resume to really make it come to life. Thank you guys for joining in today. You know, if your resume is not singing your praises, is not lifting your value the way it needs to, if your LinkedIn profile is not lifting your brand and presenting a three-dimensional sales brochure about your career, I think you know who you should work with. All the services packages are over on my website under the services tab. And if you're not quite sure which one is right for you, send me a quick email and we can have a chat beforehand. Thank you guys for joining in today. Get out there and enjoy some wonderful weather. Take care.